Today, we're going to be brainstorming how when you know what's in your DNA, it can affect the decisions you make the rest of your life. Of course, it's a Neanderthal thing.
Maybe it tastes like soap and I just like the taste of soap.
No, this is fluffy. This is fluffy.
Yeah.
What?
I don't know what you guys are talking about.
What's wrong with you?
On a side note, don't get a monkey. They go crazy.
What?
This must have been cold in Finland.
White wolf. One of the first questions I asked my new half-aunt was like,
"What's up, caveman?
your family must be musical." And she goes, no.
Oh, no.
Oh.
But I get it.
So there is no end to these stories. Like when I started researching how many people from these 23andMe type tests have found lost brothers, and especially like don't even know who their father is, actually, those kind of stories were common. So tell me this isn't crazy. This one lady thinks she's an only child. She grows up with her parents watching a TV show, some kind of sitcom, I forgot what it was. And she finds out that she has a sister that she's never met before, finds out who it is, and it turns out to be one of the actresses on the show she'd been watching her whole life.
That is so crazy.
Yeah, and there was another one where this daughter knew she was adopted and tracked down the real father, but her mom didn't even acknowledge it. So she was like, "Wait, I have DNA evidence that you like basically cheated on dad, and like that's where I came from." But the mom was just like, "No, I'm not
Denial.
gonna like, just like, no, just like those tests can't be accurate." And like, do you think you'd even bring it up if you like had that discovery?
The truth is really important. So I would think that it'd be important because you'd want to know where you really came from, because that's a whole part of you that you don't know. So that would have it could change, health wise. Like I would want to know health wise.
What if it resulted in a divorce? Your parents divorcing? If you predict that's going to happen, would you?
Maybe I wouldn't tell my mom. I would just know for myself. Be like, I want to know for my own reasons, but maybe I wouldn't tell my mom in that case.
What do you think?
I just expose her. I think the truth
You would?
always
You'd
needs
be
to
like,
come out.
has to be what it is?
Absolutely. Absolutely. In this day and age, especially if I have a thought of who my mom is and then she's living this other secret life like a superhero, please.
But that would be like 20 years ago.
Yeah, or she made a
Like,
mistake a long time ago.
yeah, that's what
but
well, that would, yeah.
there's probably a good reason why, and I feel like I need to know that reason.
Very dramatic. You'll dig in then, huh?
Yeah.
You'd be like, what's going on?
So apparently dogs can also, you can also get DNA tests for your dog. And I have a friend and she did a dog DNA
look
test.
that up.
Yeah, so I think it's a somewhat new thing.
Dog DNA?
Dog DNA, yeah. So you can see like what percentage of like different breed your dog is. And so I have a friend, she rescued a dog, and it's just a large fluffy dog. Looks kind of like a wolf, honestly. And she lives in California, so you're not really supposed to have like, wolves are only allowed in like some certain states over a certain percentage. So
Wolves are allowed somewhere?
Yeah, they actually are like the
I didn't know that was like
nowhere.
state by state. I thought we were just
state
like
by state. It's like
I thought we were like no jaguars, tigers, and wolves.
I guess if you
like
have a
in-house.
farm, you can have a wolf. I don't know how it works exactly, but
On a
California.
side note, don't get a monkey. They go crazy.
Oh, I would never want one. That was
Okay,
kind of creepy out.
fact
Anyway, so apparently in California, they are not allowed. So she wanted to do a test because whenever she would go to the dog park or wherever, they'd be like, oh my gosh, your dog looks like a wolf. And she'd be like, yeah, I know. But she didn't really know. So she's like, no, it's like Samoyed and, sheepdog mix. Like she would just kind of like make things up. But she's like, no, I actually really want to find out. So her boyfriend, when I was visiting her once, like they did the reveal, like they had a reveal. So he went backwards and he would say like, okay, so he's 5 different breeds and we're going to start from the least one. And I'm going to tell you the percent and you're going to guess what the breed is. So he's like, okay, 5%. And we're like, Samoyed. And like, nope. Whatever it is. And so then like 10%. Ooh, that's probably the wolf. And because at this point, it's not allowed really.
Yeah.
And it was like, no, it was like sheepdog. And then it went through each one. And so finally we get to the top one. It was like 27%. And we're like, great. It's obviously not a wolf. White wolf. Like it is it is more wolf than anything else.
Oh, no.
And so it was like really interesting because now that like every time I feel like her answer at the dog park has changed. When she's like, no, it's like mostly sheepdog. Now she's like, no, he's actually 10% this and 50. Like I feel like she over explains it now. I'm like,
yeah,
no,
for sure. Be like, you're
no.
giving it away.
Yeah, I know. So I mean, I feel like I don't know, like that's almost like what do you say? Like,
I know. Well, that's funny. That's like exactly the same story for Matt's puppy Bella. Like Bella's basically like 80% wolf, I would say.
Oh yeah.
She's this little teacup poodle, probably like.
No, she's like this small. Yeah, she has
Can you
0% wolf.
I bet she's 1% wolf, and she's probably so proud of
But
it.
wolves have
Right.
different traits that like other dogs don't have. Like
They
wolves
can't
will,
be domesticated, right? Or
no, honestly,
they'll just
but
bite. I'm just scared they'll bite me.
they actually make eye contact. Like dogs don't make eye contact. Wolves make eye contact because they're pack animals. And the wolf, when it's at the dog daycare, it scares the other dogs because it knows it makes eye contact with them. And the other dogs are like, what? I'm not used to this. Like, you're not one of us. Like, it kind of is like, it doesn't act like a dog. It acts like a wolf. It's very intelligent and looks, it makes different, I don't know. Its demeanor is not dog-like.
100% right. Because my mom, actually, she tells the story all the time. In Sacramento, that's where she grew up in California.
Yeah.
They would have stray animals come in and out. And so my mom would have 10 animals at one time. And they had this beautiful, white, fluffy, huge dog. And eventually the neighbors saw it, called animal control. And they were like, this is a wolf. And my mom was like, no, this is Fluffy. This is Fluffy.
Yeah.
And so my mom always says she had a pet wolf and didn't even know for about 8 weeks. This wolf was just living in their backyard.
That's crazy.
Just totally fine. It was eating normal dog food. It was totally just 100% acting like a big just fluffer because they're so sweet. And as long as you're not imposing a threat, a physical threat, because they can smell, they can literally smell the adrenaline and the fear in you. So as long as you're, a friendly, happy person, they're going to be nice to you.
You see that dogs tend to be less mentally mature, but look, a wolf howls and a dog tends to bark or yip.
Or
Can you imagine your little, I wish Bella would just start howling. Little,
That'd freak me out,
tiny
to be
little
honest.
howl. She's this big.
Also kind of shy, in a way that it was looking for social cues more than dogs do.
Right.
It's interesting just to think about. Wolves were just totally separate and humans are doing their own thing. But then one or two wolves were just nicer than other wolves. So they would move over to the group and not bite them. And then they would kind of get fed a little bit. And then those would have babies. And then they're just you can quickly breed these traits.
Yeah, obviously they get along as species.
Yeah.
So
well, and the shape a wiener. Wiener dogs had their own history where they were going into tunnels and pulling out rats and things like that. That's why they kept getting smaller and longer.
Oh my gosh, that's tough.
Yeah,
so
and there was oh gosh, I watched this one YouTube video where they talked about that evolution and how each animal has its history of what kind of reason humans kept making it look that way. Where do you fall in the nurture versus nature kind of thing?
Ooh.
Do you feel it tends to be more in your DNA or it tends to be more in the way you're raised? The way you look and the personality, you have both aspects of it?
I think it's 100% nature.
Yeah.
I do because I grew up in a small town and immediately I knew I didn't fit in. I was kind of that weird artsy vibe. I am my parents' kids. I have the personality and the talking skills of my father, and I have the stubbornness and emotions of my mother. So I don't think that without my genetics and my brain being composited the way that it is, I wouldn't be me. And also, I feel like moving places and seeing that myself and my friends haven't changed despite all of our things, because I have friends that have gone to Korea and other cultures, and you still have you at the end of the day, no matter what, because you have all these beautiful quirks and traits. And even though we are a bunch of numbers and everything, we're still our own code.
Yeah.
Right. What do you think? Where do you fall on it?
I'm definitely more more nature than nurture. I think nature gives you a set of potential qualities. You can't change those, but I think your nurture brings out and it will nurture certain ones of those to bring them out that you actually display them.
But certain aspects of your psychological profile, if you're tend to be calm or aggressive, do you feel that was built into your DNA?
I think a lot of those are built into your DNA, but
Absolutely.
But I think if you can even nurture different people's DNA differently and they'll react to the nurture differently. So I think you can only change so much. And I think different types of nurture work better for different natures, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah. Okay. I see what you're saying.
So I think
different combinations of DNA let some people be more flexible and some people be more stiff.
Yeah. I think I'm not a parent, so I cannot say this through experience, but I think if you take two different children who have obviously different DNA and different nature traits, you could raise them the same way and one will be much better than the other, or better being a relative term, but better off, I guess, because you're going to turn on and off certain things, traits they already have in them.
I feel
That's
like
my guess.
nature is the blueprint
Yes.
of what you have, and nurture is the way or the material that you're going to build your house out of. So no matter what, there's kind of a concrete, these are the facts, these are kind of what you have. And then nurture is how we can build ourselves up and make it unique and like paint those different colors and make the special quirks. I
Right.
don't know. I just came up with that.
Yeah,
in
no,
my
I
head.
love that.
No, I feel that way too.
Like I'm an introvert and that will never change. But I feel like the way I've been, like through experience and through how I was raised, I'm able to act more like an extrovert. Like some people, I told them I was an introvert and they're like, you are?
Yeah, like who would believe that?
And I was like, oh, I'm 100% introvert.
You can be an extroverted introvert, absolutely,
Yeah.
because at the end of the day,
It
you
shows.
go home to yourself, you're
Right.
tired, and you're going to pick a book, and when your battery's dead, you're dead.
Yeah. It's interesting. So the first podcast we did was on this book called Live Wired. And, you know, you might think about your brain as being kind of like an organ that's like built by your DNA. But when you start looking at the newest science, the brain's really just this kind of malleable thing that, you know, the reason we think, oh, this is like the visual cortex or this is the audio cortex, it's only because the ear is plugged into that part of the brain. And then it tends to like learn from that signal. But it's really not because DNA said this is how big your audio, you know, or your visual cortex is going to be. So that made me really think, okay, we really are flexible. Have you ever had anything where you did something and it annoyed you and then you step back and said, okay, next time this happens, I'm going to try to feel this way. And now it like naturally kind of happens.
You mean you're trying to Pavlovian yourself?
Yeah,
Yeah,
for sure.
absolutely.
Yeah. Pavlov's
That's how
dog,
you
for
get
sure.
through retail.
Oh, yeah,
is
that's like my
every
whole
time you
life,
hear
yeah.
the ding through the customer's door, you're like, smile, and then I'll eventually
Right.
like the noise.
Right, just to like build that pattern in. So
Yeah.
yeah, that makes me think that a lot of it isn't that way. But I used to be on the other end of it. And then I hear more and more stories about like everybody's family seems like they have
Right.
siblings that like couldn't be more different.
Yeah, my
Like
sister
it's hard
has
to find
3
siblings that
kids.
are all the same.
Right. That's
you know?
actually true. It's probably harder to find 3 that are the same. And my sister has 3 kids and they're all so incredibly different.
Okay, so as far as beauty goes, obviously there's like some aspects of face averages that are seen as more beautiful across cultures. So I don't exactly know all of them, but like being symmetrical or something like that. What do you guys think about how much beauty is in our DNA? Do you feel like that part is locked in and you're just kind of lucky or not? Or do you feel like there's a lot you can do with how beautiful you are?
Okay.
It's okay if it's genetic, yeah.
So
And then I have a study here. I'll quote some things that are.
So first off, it's funny that you mentioned that because I don't know if you've been on the newest trend on Instagram or TikTok is having the perfect nose shape or having basically they have filters now that will,
filters or something?
that will reconstruct. They will literally etch out your face, your lines, all the lines on your face and like reconstruct your face to show you how you would be more symmetrical and more perfect. Personally, I think there is a little bit of bias, especially where we are in America, where we live right now. I think there's a little bias to what we consider as beauty
Even what we've
standards.
called beautiful, it changes throughout the decades. Like if you just look at models through from like 1940 to like now, like Twiggy would not be considered like your like pinnacle of beauty now, but it was then.
Right.
And then it went like more curvy and then it went more athletic. And then it was very like in the 80s it was a very like athletic build, which is not what it is now. Now it's like, I think more curvy. I don't know where we are now, but like
Not
it
up on it. Matt, can
changes
you
all
figure
the
that out for
time.
us?
Yeah. Like it changes all the time.
And
So I
bad
think,
girl vibes.
right. So I think it's
Yeah.
almost like what's trending or what's in that culture at a certain time.
Well, I know, especially with males, like the amount of testosterone you have at like different times throughout your childhood will change kind of the shape of your jaw. And that can be considered more attractive if it's sort of more square. But then what's weird about that is that the amount of testosterone you have can often be, for a guy, correlated with like just if he's getting enough sleep or
Right.
like
His
if
diet.
nutrition is right. And then there's even this huge mental aspect too, because if he's competing in sports and winning a lot, then he usually gets testosterone from those wins or that mental thought of being kind
That's
of a
interesting.
dominant person or a winner. And then he gets more testosterone and then that changes the face to some degree. Or if you've heard about the jaw kind of, if you sleep with your mouth open, it can
Yeah.
kind of start
Yes.
doing something weird. And it's like, who would have thought that was just breathe through your nose and all of a sudden you're more attractive. So
Yeah.
it definitely is not totally determined by genes, even though obviously it seems like pretty people tend to have pretty babies, but
Well,
you
the
know,
one that
there's
gets
so much more to it.
So much more.
the one that gets me is for males is height. That's completely genetics.
That's a good
Oh,
point.
yeah,
that's a
that's
good
true.
point.
Height is 100% nowadays a standard of, in my opinion, beauty. For when I talk to girls, it's always, oh, he's got to be taller than me. And that is completely something that no one can control whatsoever. And they can't change it unless they want to get stilettos. But it's not like it's not like eye color, because if you don't like your eye color, you can just get a contact to change it. You can't change your height.
No.
Yep.
And on reverse side for girls, it's actually really annoying too, because I'm 5'8", and casting calls and stuff like that, they're always looking for short. And
really?
Because tall doesn't read as young. You can't be 16 and 5'8" in the acting world.
Oh, weird. I didn't think about that. But yeah,
The guy always has to be taller than the girl. Always. Okay. For romantic leads.
Yeah. So have you ever heard of the term epigenetics? Do you know what that is?
I've heard of it.
So this is also important, just generally we're going to do an episode on this one day, I hope. But there's this whole new field of research coming out that even though you might have the same DNA like me and an identical twin, one of the reasons it can read so differently throughout life is because of something called epigenetics. And what it means is that you have this string of DNA, and if it can wrap tightly around this little protein called a histone. But if you wrap tightly around it, then it reads a certain amount of it, and then it skips what's wrapped around and then continues reading. Wow. So in essence, the metaphor for it would be if you take a book and you could read it one way, but if you were to kind of rearrange the pages or fold the pages in a way where you read like the first paragraph and then folded it, so then you read the backside of the other one, it can make a whole different story. It can make a whole different protein. Wow. And even two people with the exact same DNA, a lifetime of histone modifications, epigenetic changes, which are definitely things that can happen from environmental factors, especially smoking and like chemicals and things like this can have like drastic changes.
Okay.
Or so one kind of famous example is, what was her name? There is a really famous movie star. She was known for her like really slim, skinny figure or something like that. Oh yeah, Audrey Hepburn. Yeah. So Audrey Hepburn's mom, while she was pregnant, was going through the potato famine and was starving. And because her body was starving while she was pregnant, she had histone modifications that made her daughter come out differently than if she would have been fed the whole time.
No way.
And that's part of why she has this like really slim figure. There's like an epigenetic change. But because it's wrapped in the histones that were in her fetus and then they grew up with her, unless some environmental factor changes them, she'll actually end up passing that epigenetic change on. So she's now kind of skinnier than her mom and probably will be until something changes in that epigenetic thing.
Well, it's cool because then you can kind of, the potential of changing your DNA for the better is kind of, I think, just like I could see that being very commercialized, unfortunately, but I think it's got a lot of potential.
So I'll tell you about this study. So using genetic information on nearly 4,400 white adults, researchers found that certain gene mutations were tied to people's beauty. And the ratings were from peers. So each photo was judged by a dozen people. Here's the main gene variants. Like they're technical. I'll skip those because I don't really even know how to describe them. But they're the ones that are usually associated with height, with measures of body mass. So basically like how much fat your body tends to hold on to. Not in women, but just for men. Women found men more attractive if they had genes that kept blood cholesterol levels lower. Not really sure why. They think that might be part of synthesizing testosterone and like a less manly look.
We don't want to do CPR.
I kind of have an interesting story kind of tied to 23andMe.
Oh.
In mine, I didn't know who my dad was, and all these other stories, obviously, like they find out who their dad is. But growing up, I always knew that I didn't know because my mom, she was married before and he couldn't have kids. So they used a donor, an IVF. So throughout my whole life, I knew, I was related to my mom's side, but who knew about a dad's side? But I had a stepdad, so I wasn't ever missing anything in my family. But a few years ago, I wanted to take 23andMe just to find out what my heritage was, and I found out through 23andMe that I'm half Jewish, and that I had really no idea. I thought it was really interesting, and I was very curious about, what that even meant. What does it mean to be Ashkenazi Jewish? And I ended up going on birthright. It was like a really cool experience. And it's funny, I was dating someone who was completely Jewish at the time, so it's kind of like an
Right.
interesting
He's
connection.
like, I totally know that.
He kind of feels
Yeah.
like, I had a feeling. But I kind of got to, right?
Yeah. And birthright's a whole week in Israel, right?
Yeah, it's like almost
For
2
free?
weeks in Israel for
Wow.
free. And they accepted me even though I've never like learned, like I didn't like grow up Jewish, like in the faith, you know? So
Is it because you told them your story? Like, I didn't know?
I did have that in the application. I was like, I just found out that I'm Jewish and I got to catch up on, you know, whatever I've missed out on, you
Right,
know?
get your Hebrew and
Yeah.
you have the natural sound. Yeah.
That I don't have. I don't know.
Oh, should
But
be in your DNA, you know?
it should be. So anyways, it was really interesting to find out. But once I knew that, I was kind of like, all right, cool. Like I got what I wanted to know. I never like, some people asked me like, oh, would you ever want to find who your dad was? And I was like, no, because it was anonymous. And like, I'm thankful that he did that for, you know, my mom was able to benefit from that. And so I always just kind of put it away and was like, great.
Did you think really deeply about that? Or did you tend to just not even want to?
Really
into
entertain
it.
the idea. Like I was, like I said, I had a stepdad. I have very close with his entire side of the family that is my family.
Yeah.
He doesn't even feel like a stepdad. He's really always just like my mom, my dad.
You're not really feeling like a missing thing to fill in. You
No.
just, because you love the person who raised you. And yeah.
I felt like a very like nuclear family.
Okay.
So,
That makes sense.
so then,
actually.
so then a few,
And he
like,
kind of deserves that too, if you put all that effort in to raise
Exactly.
you. And yeah.
he raised me and he loves me just like his other daughters, my much older sisters. So, stepsisters. So then here comes like early last year, I got an email from 23andMe. It says someone sent you a private message on 23andMe. And
Oh,
I
boy.
honestly don't know
Famous
why I
last
answered that
words.
because that seemed like, now looking back, it sounds like junk mail that I would get. But I opened it up and it said someone, like a female, 33 years old, sent me a private message. And she said, you know, I just took 23andMe and I'm looking at my relatives and you show as a first cousin, but I'm kind of low key freaking out because I don't know, like we have a small family and I don't like, you're very clearly like in it genetics wise, like how could this be? So she reached out and I responded. I said, very possible. I don't know who my dad's side of the family, like I don't know my dad's side. So it's possible that we can be related somehow. I kind of left it at that. But she like was very excited. She gave me her cell phone number and was like, reach out. And I was like, she seems really curious. So sure. Like I texted her and she asked a few questions. She first texted me very late at night one night and the next morning. So she must have spent all night like trying to figure this out. Like she was just like, oh my God, I gotta figure this out. So like Tuesday morning, she texts me and she's like, okay, so we're not cousins. It makes sense that we were because we're similar in age. And that's kind of what 23andMe guessed.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But you're actually my half niece because my half brother is your dad. And I was like I was just shocked because like I said, I
Yeah,
never
for
thought I'd find
sure.
out. And I was just like in the middle of a day working at home, you know, so it was kind of like, I was like in a virtual, like a video meeting, like reading my phone and I was just like,
Like that's yeah.
what? So,
Like Ashley, you look like you have something to say. I'm like, no,
No,
it's
just,
just great meeting.
shocked.
Thank you. I'll just keep thinking on it.
yeah. But she was so amazing because she was very much like, I don't know what your process is or like what, like this must be a shock to you. So like, let me know how much you want to know about your family. I want to respect your process.
Oh yeah.
Wow,
She was
that's really
amazing.
nice.
Yeah.
She's like, I can tell you more about your family. And I was like, tell me everything. Like if you're okay with sharing.
Yeah.
Like this, I mean, people always ask me like, were you shocked? And like, no, because everyone knows they have a dad. That
Right.
you know.
And
But-
your parents were always clear about.
Yeah. But he must be shocked because he's finding out he has a biological child. He doesn't have biological kids. So I'm his only.
Wait, what?
Yeah. So he has stepkids.
Oh, for sure. That's gonna be a big
Yeah. So
curiosity
was-
of his.
He's having a Maury moment.
possibly. So, you know, I wanted to make sure I respected their process at the same time.
Yeah.
And really she told the whole family because I let her, and she's like, you know, who's really, really excited is my parents. So your grandparents, or at least your grandfather and his wife,
God.
they want to meet you really bad. So we had like a video call. I ended up visiting them. They're
So
in.
his parents wanted to meet you most,
Yes.
but
Because
he wasn't aware of it, or he didn't want to, or he didn't know yet.
he was very curious, but also like, I mean, that's gotta be a big shock to him, you know? So I think he was, you know, I've actually never met him.
Yeah, because no kids.
you know,
Like I've never
and
had this responsibility. Yeah.
he has his stepkids, he raised them in a way. So like, I don't want to like,
Yeah.
his
Oh,
family,
gotcha. He did have
you know.
kids.
yeah. So like that would kind of interrupt his family
And he was
structure.
and he was aware that you were in a nice nuclear family. So it's not like you
Yeah.
were coming like I've been
No.
missing something in my life.
Exactly.
I think he'd want to know. I'd want to know.
He
That's
does.
interesting.
Yeah. So But yeah, my grandparents, I met them. They're amazing people. And I can, and then I met my half aunt, and she's amazing. I went to go visit her in San Diego last year, and actually going to see her again next weekend in Palm Springs. So I'm like super excited that I kind of got to meet and learn about my whole family history. Because when I met my grandfather, he gave me all these pictures and pictures of my biological father, and kind of hearing all the traits. They're all doctors.
Oh my gosh.
Right?
That is,
of different things.
Oh, is that Indian? All my family's all teachers, and Jen's
That's
family's
so
all
funny.
lawyers. Your family all something?
One's an accountant and one's a radio guy.
Oh yeah. Well,
Yeah.
thanks for breaking that. There you
Sorry,
go.
man,
That theory's
yeah.
out the window.
Yep.
But anyways,
It's all over.
so they're all doctors.
They're all doctors. I didn't get the doctor gene apparently. But that's okay. But they also are they highly value education, and I just was in the middle of getting my master's
Yeah,
when I met them.
that's
So
right.
I feel like there might be something there.
Yeah.
My half aunt, her and I, we look somewhat alike, a tiny bit. Our coloration is the same. She's also blonde, but we are similar in certain ways. We're very environmentally conscious. We both love sea life. I grew up just loving
Oh.
sea life, and
Yes.
she
Just like being on a boat, you mean?
no rescuing sea
Marine
life.
biology.
I wanted to be a marine
Oh,
biologist.
That's what I wanted to be
Gotcha.
when I was a little
Yeah.
girl. And then I realized
Dolphin
math
trainer
class.
type. Yeah.
Yes, you do need a lot of math. But she helps rescue sea lions in San Diego.
That
And
is
I
so
worked at
cool.
SeaWorld, and it's just kind of funny parallels there.
Are your grandparents in the same region where you originally were from? Are they still
Yeah.
in that area?
Yes, they're all still there.
Wow. That's
So yeah,
crazy.
it was pretty crazy. And
And where is that?
that's Massachusetts, Connecticut area.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we definitely matched
They
up.
immigrated to the U.S. and set up shop there.
So yeah, it's been a pretty crazy adventure, I think. I mean, I completely when you're talking about families merging together,
Yeah.
I was also kind
Right.
of worried about what my step family would think, because they raised me. Would they think oh, who's stepping in now, new family members? They were so supportive. They were tell me everything, this is crazy, are you gonna meet them? So my mom was also incredibly supportive. Everyone's been very open and wanting to meet each other. My mom actually got to meet my grandfather, and
So
she warned me.
cool.
She's I'm gonna cry because they gave their son gave me the best gift of my life, and she's I'm gonna cry when I meet them. She didn't cry. I was very proud of her, but she was
okay, let it go.
I know.
Yeah.
But it was such a great great experience, and I hope to keep that relationship for my life.
Wow.
so cool.
Yeah, that's
Great story.
I know it's kind of funny how why then,
Yeah.
kind
Do
of
you-
gets.
Do you think it was better for you to handle it now as an adult, air quotes, than you as a teenager, maybe a kid
Oh yeah, you
trying
think it was
to
an
deal with
ideal?
that?
That's a good question. Ideal age?
Great question. I think having some maturity going into it would have been the best scenario. Because I feel when you're a teenager, you're still trying to figure out who you are.
Yeah.
And throwing a wrench into that is probably not the best idea. Because you're wait,
Oh my gosh.
who is
yeah.
my family? But now I'm I know
Teenagers
who I am.
don't want to rebel
Right.
anyways.
Right.
I'm
Maybe
so
I would
sick
have
of
been
this.
what if I was thinking about colleges? Would I have been oh, am I destined to be a doctor? Should I be a doctor?
That's what I mean.
I would be a horrible doctor, so I'm glad I didn't entertain that idea. But maybe I would have. Maybe I would have been oh, I'm supposed to do
That's
this.
what all my families. Yeah, we're the best at it.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Little things
There's
like
that
that.
nature versus nurture.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. But when you were a little kid, did you have any doctor toys or anything? Or
No.
what did you play with as a kid?
Like-
because I feel like there's a correlation between kids imagining that they're
Absolutely,
things and then
there
they
is.
become those things.
Did you being an actor, actress? Did you?
Oh, yeah.
Did you
Microphone.
put on shows?
I had the Barbie microphone. And so my parents, I remember this distinctly, 9 years old, we would have themed birthday parties because that's what you do. Every year is a different theme. But 9 years old, we had American Idol. And my dad dressed up in a Simon Cowell wig, and he made he made all of my friends audition.
You
My
were destined for a reality show?
My mom played Paula Abdul, and I had to play Randy with and I'd be yo dog, that was tight, man, give it to me one more time, and all my friends auditioned. They all had to put on a random act. But absolutely, performing was in my blood. My aunt was on Broadway. She was in Andrew Lloyd Webber's Cats, and ever since then, despite my grandpa being a journalist, he did not want any of them to go in that field. And then my aunt and my dad both got into the arts, in a way. My dad got into broadcasting. My aunt got into acting. And then when it came to me, it was kind of a no-brainer.
Wow.
Yeah. But the athletic ability too, on the flip side though, because I was a coach's daughter.
Yeah.
And
okay.
sports is something I think sports is genetics 100%, because there are so many parents who try to put it on their kids and it doesn't work.
Yeah, they're like,
But when it works, and you always hear that it was a talent that came from someone else, but also it comes from your own ability.
Like Tiger Woods was like trained from like 3 years old and onwards.
Exactly.
And you're like, yeah, it's no coincidence.
But like you get, I feel like I have a best friend who has a 6-month-old right now, and the way he moves his legs and he can move, like the way he kicks, I can just tell right now this kid is either going to be into soccer, basketball, or a drummer, because the way that you can just tell with babies just right off the bat that there's certain inclinations that they have. Like he gets excited over certain music types, over different types. And it's just amazing to see infants already at that phase.
See, I kind of knew I could be a software developer from a young age, although it looked like, because when I played with Legos, I think my parents thought, oh, he's probably going to want to build like boats or cars or something, because that's kind of what you do with Legos. But I remember labeling, like I would put like a yellow just square on a boat, and then I would label it A, and then like another one and label it B. And then I would write on like a little chart that like, I'd write the letter A. Yeah, I'd write the letter A, and I'd be like, this is where the boat keeper keeps all the maps. And then like I would put like B, because I just had to, all I had was this dumb block to represent a much more complicated thing. And I was like, this is the engine room where they keep all the wrenches. And like I had all these little blocks, but like my poor mom would have to like read the blueprint. So like, cause it would just look like a boat with like squares and I was like, there's something about that always seemed
there's a whole index
similar. I don't know how much you program, but you're always writing functions, which are essentially like these little containers. And then you reference them or you put something into them and it changes it. But it's always
really labeling things.
Yeah, but it's always like you build something and then you make instances of it. And that's not that far off from how I was playing as a kid.
So like my play as a kid was very like, I'm in retail, and I think it's like I always played store or shop. Yeah. Like it was like very
really?
no-brainer. Yeah, like that's like the type of play. Like I didn't play house, I didn't play doctor, I didn't play teacher. Played store. And so like I don't know, it's like that like shopkeeper mentality we talk about in work. But like that was what I was into. And I also was very into music. And that was actually another thing, because growing up, no one on my mom's side is musical. So I always assumed growing up, since like, I don't know who my dad's side, that must be from that side.
You found that with the new...
So one of the first questions that I asked my new half aunt was like, your family must be musical. And she goes, no.
You're like, defying.
Where did I get it? Apparently there's someone really, really long ago who was in the Warsaw Symphony.
Okay. So
with violin, and I played violin.
There.
So, but it's like really far. It's like I feel like it's like a trait that just really was really on like below the surface.
Sure,
and, like,
it pops up every once in a while. Yeah.
But like it's kind of funny because I thought that would answer some questions about that, but not so much. It's fine.
Matt, what about you when you were a kid? You want to be a comedian?
Not really. I mean, when I was growing up, I was like playing with like superhero toys.
There's like a storytelling about like aspect to that for sure.
Yeah, without doubt.
I'm 20% Slovakian, and I didn't even know it. So when I ended up doing the 23andMe, I talked to my parents, and my mom specifically didn't know anything about it, but my aunt, because we all have, the gossip aunt in our family.
Yeah,
she ended up telling me this story about my great-grandparents, about how my great-grandmother was actually kind of a Slovakian woman that my family was not proud of because they were Sicilian at the time. And Sicilian, Italian immigrants were already getting enough slack while coming here to America during Prohibition and everything. And so they didn't want to mix the cultures. The Slovakian family was not happy with the Italian family, with the crossbreedings. And they had my grandpa, my papa. His name was Papato, but he actually changed it to Papoto to sound even more Italian. Completely changed his name, reversed it, just so that way it was kind of an even bigger slap in the face to my great-grandmother. And I didn't even know I was 20%.
What?
That's so crazy.
So again, I think the truth matters.
I do. Whenever it comes out.
I lived 25 years not even knowing I was 20%. That's a percentage per year. I knew part of it from an oral history, but then it confirmed it in my genealogy. I am related to 2 U.S. presidents. So the first one I'm related to is Herbert Hoover. So the dam is mine in Nevada. That's my joke. He is my great aunt is Cora Dora Hoover, and that is her actual birth name. And she was Herbert Hoover's aunt. Actually, my parents, we took a trip to Washington, D.C., and in D.C., there's like a little Hoover memorial, and you can see his family photo, and you can see my aunt like right there. And it's just so weird. And ever since then, I've like named every car Cora Dora just because I love that. I just
do
think
like that name.
Well, it's so like, it's just so like rainy, right?
yeah.
Come on, Cora Dora, what's up? You know? The other one I'm related to isn't as important. It's John Tyler, and I found that out through the Ancestry DNA. That's completely by blood, and it's too many greats, but he's my cousin. People are like, who's John Tyler besides a really old white dude? John Tyler, he's known for being the vice president of William Henry Harrison, who was the shortest term president because he was the one who got the pneumonia in the speech. So if you've ever heard, don't ever go outside in the cold because you'll die of an pneumonia, it's because his president did. And he was the first ever vice president elect to become president. Also, he was a member of the Whig Party. What the heck is the Whig Party? I don't know.
They wore wigs.
They wore wigs. Yes, they were fierce.
Okay, so everybody, I think, here did some Ancestry compositions.
Yeah.
Any big surprises?
Not surprised. I mean, finding out I was Ashkenazi Jewish, like 50% was the biggest one.
Yeah, you've been through
But I didn't know I was French and German. Like, I always thought I was just like, I don't know, maybe British.
Yeah,
or
that's well, yeah. I'm only 0.4%, but I was also very shocked that I had French and German.
Yeah, French. I mean, I studied abroad in France, and I didn't know I was French. So
no, you were just going back home, man.
Yeah,
your genes,
I just knew.
Your
I
genes
felt
were
it.
like taking you there.
It. Yeah.
So I had, I was like kind of what I expected. I'm 50% Scandinavian, but then more of the British Irish, the 28%. I was surprised about that. Yeah, I think that made sense. I knew my grandma was like straight off the boat, or my great grandma was straight off the boat from Sweden. So we always called her more, and like we did very like Swedish things. And then the Swedish meatball recipe was handwritten by her that then went to my grandma, who then taught it to Jen. The one thing our family has like brought down all the way from there. So
you're gonna say it got passed on to IKEA, and they now use it.
Yeah, no, for sure. And then they brought it back. They're like, we'll just mass produce it and like send it all over the country. But probably came from my great grandma, or same people. But what about you, Matthew? Tell me about your genealogy.
Mainly Filipino. It says 56% Filipino. I'm also French.
Really?
Ooh,
So cool.
Come on, France.
And I'm also 1% Scottish as well.
Yeah, I see that in you.
Yeah, for sure. Which would probably explain my drinking problem.
Yeah. I will say, like, we went to Finland a couple years ago, and I do feel like there was something just about that, the way the average person talked that felt comforting. Like, I've always been fairly, like, non-reactive. Like, it's harder for me to just be, like, really bursty with my laugh or really angry either. I'm just a little more muted, and I felt like almost everybody I met there was kind of muted, so it makes me wonder if that's part of the DNA or just part of the culture. But
other countries, when they're like making fun of Americans and they're like being a character of American, they talk like this, where their mouth is really wide, because when we talk, we're very expressive. And like French, they're not like that. Apparently they're not like that either. So like
they're making fun of us.
So they're just making like so they'll often make fun of us because Americans are being known for like speaking really wide and like being really expressive,
like all super animated.
Yeah, and like they're like,
look, I'm an American.
Yeah,
I'm
exactly.
like super exaggerated all the time.
We're like French people. I feel like it'd be really hard to be like a lip reader, like reading French, because they speak very small.
During birthright, did you feel anything with the culture that felt like maybe it was resonating from your DNA, or did it feel very different?
A bit. Like I think they're very open-minded. I just think like what I got from it was that like they wouldn't teach us much about the religion itself, but they taught us about like I think in that religion, and they're very like, they question everything. They're very like, we don't have any definitive answers. We debate. We just and that's, learning is part of their culture.
I love that. Yeah, that's my favorite part about like Talmudic learning. But you can hold two opposing thoughts in your head.
Right. Like
Pretty
I think,
easily?
yeah, I can. I think like I'd be a really bad lawyer because I'd be like, well, I could see both sides, you know, like, oh, yeah.
No, he could be
I
a
see
bad
that.
guy. Could
Right.
be a good guy,
But
really.
sometimes he's good. Sometimes he's bad. I don't know.
Have you
Like,
not seen Better Call Saul? That's literally the whole plot.
Oh my God, no, I have not.
So I'm actually European. I know that's a shocker for most in this room. And for those that don't, it's because I'm very, very pale skinned who can't see me right now. But I am 27.5% Irish, specifically from the County Cork, Ireland. Oh, how exciting.
Nice, yeah. You look that up on
How's
the
your
map.
accent? You have a good
I
accent?
try to have an accent. Keyword, I try to have an
Oh,
accent.
it's
but
good. It's
Yeah,
good.
oh, I bought it.
Oh,
yeah.
thanks. I really appreciate you.
That's great.
And then it's funny because I remember my dad specifically like drilling into us that we were German, and because he has like all of this German soccer gear, and like he watches and like in the World Cup he roots for Germany.
So that's my family.
I mean, granted, Germany's way better than USA in soccer right now in the World Cup, but
Definitely true.
but I am 0.9% German, so that's just a lie.
I don't know if you guys picked this up, but do you know if you share 20% of your DNA with someone, they're very likely your grandparent, your aunt or your uncle, or at least a half sibling. So when I looked at mine, the only person who it found that had 25% DNA shared with me was my aunt. So it felt pretty accurate in that sense. And then it dropped all the way down to 5, which was my next one, which was my cousin who lives in Hawaii. And then everyone else was kind of in the ones, and they were first, second, and third cousins. So is that pretty much what you guys saw in yours? Did anybody show up with more than 20%? Besides Ashley, obviously.
Pull it
No, it was about 15% because she's a half aunt.
Oh, 50. Oh, it wasn't
so
even
it's
to 20 then, huh?
No, so it's kind of like what a cousin would be. So it's not direct as an aunt.
Okay.
So she was, when I looked in the database, she was the closest one to me just because my super direct relatives had never taken it. But if you go past that, there's like hundreds of like 1% less than 1%. And obviously that's like degrees and degrees of people removed
Yeah.
family wise. But it's fun to like look at their names and think of like,
Oh, I know. Yeah,
what-
me too.
you know,
Yeah.
and there's a ton of Jewish names.
Yeah, but mine just
Mine are-
listed them all by percentage, and it was
Literally,
cool.
mine are less than 10%, even that, and they're all my cousins. And see, the thing is, so the Croatian side, the last name is Civitano, but it's spelled Cvianov.
Wow.
So it's a pretty distinct last name. So
Yeah.
immediately I just see Civitano. But my cousin, she's my third cousin removed. And we share 3% of DNA, but I didn't even know she lives in Vegas.
Wow.
What?
Yeah.
What are the odds of that?
Right.
I talked to my mom about that, and she was like, "Oh yeah, she lives more in Anthem." And I was like, "Okay, great.
That's not far.
We don't talk about her. We don't talk about Candace. No.
Jeez,
Oh.
that's crazy to know.
I'm like mixed. I'm like Filipino, Chinese. I'm Welsh for some reason, Scottish, Spanish, and French. But my first cousin took it, and we share about 15% of DNA. And the rest of the people here, so these people, so these are my second cousins, and we share less than about 2% of data. And
The drop
look
off
at-
so fast.
yeah, it's not Filipino at all.
No.
She's actually like from the States, I think. And then I'll look at all my fourth cousins. Check this out.
Dude. Yeah, that's
And it just
definitely-
keeps going.
I don't even remember how many. God, that's
These are
just the people who
people-
were signed up for Ancestry DNA.
Yeah.
These are people I share only less
Is
than
that how
1%.
everybody looks?
It's like,
Is
yeah,
it
less than
kind of
1%. And then it just
exponential
goes on.
jump?
There's like pages and pages and pages of people. And mine
Look
are all
at
just
that.
like many, many Jewish
Dude,
names.
this is why we're like 6 degrees away from like almost everyone.
Exactly.
All right, so let's go to, you guys have some traits you want to talk about?
Sure.
Okay, so I'll just list them off and then you guys can chime in as you please. So did anybody get an introvert extrovert test? And I'm guessing, because I know Matt got one and
Yeah, I got
I was not surprised at what it was.
What do you guys think it is? Introvert, extrovert?
Ooh, I'm gonna guess extrovert.
Extrovert, okay.
I'm gonna guess introvert, just to be
Introvert?
different.
Well, let's find out. 3, 2, And I'm an extrovert, apparently.
Matt is an
Yay!
extrovert. It makes total sense because he's worked at a magic shop and he's like, step on up. Want to see a magic card fly? Let me show you a card trick. Like he's just got that in his
I don't know how they
genes,
test
I think.
this, you know?
I mean, they're literally in your genes, yeah.
But then like when I think of like
The
my
big moment.
sisters, like my stepsisters, one is extroverted, one's introverted. And then like my sister's kids also run the gamut between them. So I
Yeah.
never
with
never
half the
could
DNA
tell.
though.
Oh. But then if you have I feel like couples are often an extrovert and an introvert. So
Oh, really?
yeah,
Absolutely.
I get that.
Really?
It's like a balance. So I feel like because of that, you often have kids that vary too, you know?
That's
That's
interesting.
definitely true. My sister is super introverted.
You feel like that's
Yeah?
you think that's maybe. I mean, there might be something that in genetics that I don't know. That's interesting.
Yeah, what about genetics of like attracted to an extrovert
Yeah,
versus
like it just
introvert?
like it helps the I don't know, coupling or something like that.
Yeah.
Maybe it helps the resilience of the coupling. What about athletic genes? Do you feel like you guys
Yes.
if you're sprinters, VO2 max, if you build quick twitch muscles or strong muscles?
I have more than 2% of Neanderthal in me.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Gasp. And
Dude,
so
I have so much Neanderthal. That
in
was
that-
kind of shocking to me.
in that, it says you have not one, but two variants associated with being a better sprinter than a runner.
You think that comes from your Neanderthal?
Yes, and that explains why I'm a great
he-
softball player and I can run to base, and I could never do the mile to save my life, and I wanted to cry, and literally my side would hurt from how much the mile run would do.
Yeah.
Also, do you remember those pacer things that you have to do that are now illegal?
I blocked those out.
They are. They're gone.
They're
They've
illegal?
been banned for about like
I didn't
5
know either.
years now for cruelty because I mean it was kind of cruel. But
was cruel.
my point is I was terrible at those. But if you asked me to steal a base, game over. Done.
Wow. Yeah, actually, I play baseball too. I love that. So I might be giving you a run for the money, but it says I have more Neanderthal variants than 97% of customers.
Oh, you got me.
Wow.
on
What's up,
yeah.
caveman?
You win the Neanderthal award.
Can
Yeah,
you
like,
save me
super.
insurance?
Right,
on-
and I was like, what was with my ancestors like breeding so
are they
much
doing?
with yeah. So I mean, I'm super high on that, and it comes with some health risks, but there's also in some cases a little bit more diversity in my genes, so maybe it can help, but it's probably it's too much.
Does it tell you
Too
like,
much.
how
If I
many
could, like, take a
variants
little
you
bit out.
have, or does it just say
No, it just says I have more Neanderthal variants than 97% of customers, and then later on a different website I was reading how sometimes when you're really high in Neanderthal genes, you can have just sort of like blood type kind of funky things or stuff that's not really well studied. And I was
must
like,
have been
dang it,
cold
that
in
sucks.
Finland or something? I don't know.
Yeah,
man.
I don't know.
I have very low Neanderthal. It was like less than 2%. I'm on the very end of the scale. The
Yeah.
opposite end. I don't know.
Yeah, it might. It's interesting. So this is really in speculation land, but it might have something to do with. So obviously we were all in Africa, like all of humanity, and then different branches start going north, and the genes aren't super good at being in the cold, right? So mating with Neanderthals who had already established themselves in the cold might have had something to do with it. I also tend to like the cold a lot more. I'm much better.
It's true.
I'm much better
That's
in the snow
interesting.
than the heat and things like that.
I'm the opposite of you. Like I'm like heat. I hate colds.
Well, Jen too, and she's
Okay.
she's Jewish, and she is like cold all the time, and
Yeah, we run
Israel's pretty warm comparatively. So yeah, I feel like none of your ancestors went the same northern route that mine did to Sweden and Finland and everything. But yeah, so there might be something to that. I guess you're Neanderthal. You feel strong in the cold?
Yeah, absolutely. And
Maybe.
in Wisconsin.
We're totally making this up
I
now,
mean,
but it
why
could
not?
be. Yeah, it's,
I
gotta call it
believe it was
23andMe.
actually
Yeah.
the snap, and then they came back 7 years. Never mind.
wait, what's that? Oh, was that a joke?
I was making a Marvel reference.
Oh,
Thank
Thanos
you.
snap.
over my head.
Thank you. Somebody got it. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you to the media guy.
Oh my god.
All right, what about the smell of asparagus in your pee? Did you guys
I
get
didn't see
that?
a test
so
result for
funny.
that.
Yeah.
Everyone has that.
Can you smell it?
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
I can't smell it at all.
Yeah, Matt
I don't
was-
even know what you guys are
Matt
talking
was like-
about.
What's wrong with you?
Yeah.
Might not notice its distinctive smell.
I know. And then
It
Matt
is a very
and then Matt's like, "Well, you smelling your pee and all this stuff."
It's
And
like,
I'm
what,
like,
you-
I'm not trying to, but it's just this scent that my brain picks up on.
So interesting. It's like in your brain. Like, so I lost my sense of smell and taste when I had COVID a few months ago.
Really?
And like, it's trippy because it's in your brain. It's not in your nose. It's in your brain that that it affects.
I mean, like the
memory.
molecule floats in there, but can you detect it or not?
And so like it took time. Like for a week, I could smell half of things and I couldn't smell other things.
Oh my god.
And so like it's kind of funny to think that that's like because like my brain was kind of rewiring itself at that point. So it's just interesting that like some people will not have those wires, will never touch, you know?
Dude, I would, because if somebody could swap out my nose for dog nose and then my brain could adapt to all of that smell, it would be so interesting. The quality you'd get, the sense of all these new smells would probably be amazing.
Definitely.
You know, that's why. So I actually just barely learned this. You might think it's obvious, but I wondered why dogs stick their head out the window. And I was like, oh, they must love the wind or something. And then
wait, it's not because of that?
No,
smells.
it's because the smell, like it's their nose. They're
What?
smelling the way we're like looking at all those things.
That's
they're like
crazy.
They're like, oh my God, every corner has a new smell, all these people, because they're picking up on so much from so far away.
That's
I
so
just
fast.
learned something
So much-
new today.
Yeah, no, they're sticking
Oh
their,
my
they're sticking
God.
I think the same thing, but
What?
no, they're just on
Makes
full
sense.
blast sniff.
What?
Like that's when you see those dogs.
That's like a
Yeah.
sensory overload for
That's
sure.
wild.
Yeah, look at that. According to Google, should my dog hang their head out the car window? Yeah, as air washes over them at high speeds, it creates a pleasurable sensory
Oh,
overload.
and that's why they're smiling.
Oh, they're so
They are
happy. Yeah.
happy.
Oh, I
'Cause they
thought it was
love-
just because of the wind
Me
and they were
too.
hot or something.
No,
Yeah.
because when they're walking, they can only get so much smell. But the car is like they're going so fast, smells
Yeah.
everywhere.
Man, I have a
must
theater
be trippy
degree,
for
okay?
them.
I don't know.
What about flushed face when you're drinking alcohol?
Nope.
No, not
Yep.
that one.
No,
I
actually,
do.
no, not for me, but yeah.
I'm from Wisconsin. No.
I get extremely red every time I drink alcohol.
Really?
Yep.
Is
and
it all alcohol or is it
Others,
particular?
yeah.
every single alcohol?
Interesting.
I have friends who have that gene too, but specifically it's like tequila. It's not vodka, soju.
So it's more like something.
Yeah,
in the,
soju doesn't normally mess people up too badly, but like it's more like tequila, rum, the hot,
Yeah.
like, you know, those types of liquors.
Yeah.
How about
Different liquors.
How about cilantro? You guys get the slightly higher or lower odds of disliking it?
I have
Disliking it, and I do dislike it.
Yeah, I have
high odds too, but I love cilantro, so they were a little off on mine.
Matt,
I
what
love
about
That's
you?
nurture right there.
Right?
Yeah, you've learned to love
Maybe
it.
it like actually maybe it tastes like soap, and I just like the taste of soap. I'm just kidding.
Imagine.
Yeah, mine's slightly higher odds of disliking cilantro.
I mean, I don't really know what cilantro is. I don't think I've ever had cilantro.
It's a garnish.
It's this, right? I don't know
Some
what the
cultures
heck
call
this
it
is.
coriander.
Yeah.
I believe.
Oh, I don't like it.
Dairy?
It's a garnish.
Dairy.
I love dairy.
I
But
don't
lactose
love it.
intolerance,
But do you-
no, I don't have lactose.
No lactose genes?
No.
What
No.
about you, Matt?
You know what's funny? They took this test and they told me I have lactose intolerant. I'm more likely to have lactose intolerant, but I drink milk all the time.
Nothing? Yeah, you're
All
keeping
the
it up.
time.
Just kidding.
Well, so I took an anthropology class, and that was a whole thing. Is if you have that gene, it's because your ancestors way back when, pre-European cultures didn't have cow. They didn't use cows as
Oh,
much.
They kind of lost.
Cows were used for a different
Right,
purpose.
because you didn't drink
because
milk
cow-
as an adult.
No,
So they
because
lost
cows
ability
were
to-
a sacred purpose. Where
I see.
Europeans, that's all they had out there because cows were the only
Oh,
things that they
that's
could survive.
interesting.
That's actually
And
pretty
so, if you
interesting,
come
yeah.
from that
So there was
European
a
descent,
divergent in those two groups.
exactly. So if you typically come from a Northwestern European heritage, you are not lactose intolerant.
Huh.
If you came from, unfortunately, like other regions, you typically
Yeah,
have
they
a
just
higher
weren't using
region.
that in their diet that
But
much.
if you trained your body, and if you've been here in America, or if you're been accumulated to the culture,
Right.
then
So
your body will
interesting.
become human evolution,
Dude, I
literally
love learning
Darwinism.
stuff like
But
that.
there's something very interesting because I think I've drinking milk ever since I was a very, very young kid. So I mean, I probably had lactose intolerant. I just drank so much milk it doesn't really affect me
Yeah.
anymore.
In Israel, there's a very, very, very low incidence rate of peanut allergies because kids grow up for generations having these snacks called bamba, and they're like little peanut snacks.
Bamba?
And so like because like every kid like they're in how you can't have peanuts in like any elementary school now.
Yeah.
In Israel, they're just like what they have at a snack
It's
all
Texas
the time.
Roadhouse. My best friend's from
What?
Jeddah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so she and her mom she immigrated here when she was 7. You should see their house. Like they have peanuts everywhere. You're
That's,
absolutely correct. Like that is so true.
It's like, have you heard
exposure.
that as humans, we lost the gene that make vitamin C. So now we have to
What?
actually
Oh
get,
my
so we have to
gosh.
get it from our, fruits.
Yeah.
But if you go back in time, chimps still have it. And then if you follow back to a common ancestor, that person that we're both related to had it. But there must have been so much vitamin C and so much fruit that somehow when it got broken, it didn't kill anyone. And we just kept eating vitamin C in our diets, and it never stopped any mating.
Also, I was going to ask you a question. While you were doing your beautiful pilgrimage, did you notice that your stomach had any intolerance to any types of the foods or anything?
Funny you should
was
say
it
that.
built in? That's a good question.
When I was there, like, so I'm vegetarian, and like you could, it's very easy to be vegan there. And like at that point I was still eating a little bit of meat, but I went the entire time without eating any meat, and everything was so fresh. It could have just been like everything was fresh and kind of like just like organic because it came.
So you felt good.
I felt amazing. And then when I came back
That's
to the
just
States,
leaving America though, unfortunately.
right, I know. When I came back to the States, I had a stomach ache for like 2 days. It was like all my like normal, like,
it was a reverse
crap
effect.
was like,
I wonder if that was in your gene. I wonder if that food you were like native. Yeah, your body's just native.
Everything
to that
was amazing.
food.
I loved everything.
That would make sense to me.
I've noticed that I got my gallbladder removed. So my friend, she makes amazing curries. She has to take out certain spices because like literally my genes can't handle certain spices because my gallbladder is gone. And so like she's like, okay, I got to make it white girl flavor. And I'm like, yeah, let's make it my flavor.
Yeah.
What about earwax? You guys get your
the
test?
normal
Wet.
Yeah.
Was it correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, mine's probably wet, but it's not like I really knew.
Do you
I was like, it didn't
Do
feel
you
like.
check your ears regularly?
Well, I don't know how to measure it against non-wet, I guess. Like
weird.
I mean, it comes out with a Q-tip. Is that looser than hard?
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting to see like normal wake up time. Like it guessed what time you wake up, and mine said 8:45 naturally.
Wait, where does that show that?
Yeah, I do remember that too. Was that right for you?
Yes, oh my gosh, I would probably wake up at like 9 every morning if given the opportunity to sleep that late. So that was incredibly like accurate, you know? I'm not a morning person. Like it doesn't matter how much sleep I get. If I have to wake up early in the morning, I'm just not a happy person.
So mine says that I'm less likely than average to be a deep sleeper, which seems about right. I've never been great at sleeping, especially not hard for me to fall asleep in sort of situations where a lot of other people can. It has to be kind of perfect for me to get into deep sleep. And then I have more likely than average to have movement. And I was like, no, that's not me. And Jen's like, oh, yes, it is. And she's like, you definitely are like rolling around a lot. And I'm like, oh, okay, I guess so. And then it said that my likely wake up time is 8:35.
Oh, close to mine. Are you more of a late night, early?
Well, here's
morning?
what's weird is seems to be the time I wake up, but I also am a night person, I think. But it's hard to know with lights, and being a programmer, it just felt like the only quiet time, so I'd stay up real late.
Mine's interesting. I actually just read it more closely. It says at people with your genetics in their 20s makes that distinction about the time. So it probably is assuming that as they get older, it could change. Or
there is,
it's
but you know, old people. Okay, so here's another, just kind of totally random, but there's a theory that in group settings, it makes sense if old people in the group wake up earlier and younger people sleep in longer because as a group, somebody's awake all the time to look out for predators.
Yeah.
So it would make sense that there's like a generational change to protect so that there's always somebody awake around the clock, which is completely wrong for the way kids go to school at like 7 a.m. They should actually be starting way later.
It makes sense that the older ones would wake up first because they're more likely to be tired at the end of the day just because they've had their whole day, you know?
So what else? Anything sleep related? I'm just curious.
I am absolutely restless. It says I am in the range of being more than 90% restless. I don't know how to word this.
Than the rest of the population.
I don't get sleep. The end.
It's like I get more sleep than almost everybody else.
Yeah, no, and it's true because I always make the joke. I am the first to wake up and the last to fall asleep. And I don't know why that is. It's just hard. And then when I talked, I was like, do I move around? Yeah, I move around. Yeah. Absolutely. There's been stories of my family of not only me sleep talking, but also.
Oh, really?
Wow.
Yeah, my dad and I think it is genetic because I think I get it from my dad. My dad does sports announcing, and so he will literally reenact boxing matches.
Oh my gosh.
He has accidentally like hit my mom.
That kind of makes sense though, because I dream about my work all the time.
And
so if what you do is talk, I'm not surprised.
So do I. And so like apparently like
I will be like,
hello world, good. And like I have like literally given Shakespeare being like to be and like smacked the other person in the bed.
Amazing.
So that's really romantic, right?
Mosquito bites. Did you guys get more or less susceptible to mosquitoes?
More. And that's true.
They like you?
Yeah.
What about stretch marks?
Oh, yes.
Mine said.
And yes, I do, because I'm tall.
Yeah. Mine said more susceptible to them too.
The other one that got me was it says that I only have 6% of a chance in my genetics to have brown eyes to pass on.
Oh, pass on. Okay.
Yeah. So I think that's really interesting. Like everything was, I'm either 50% blue eyes, 20% blue-green eyes, but the hazel and the brown combined was a solid 9%.
What about your caffeine consumption and or digestion, like your ability to metabolize?
That was a weird one. I have a high metabolism, but I would argue that
for the caffeine molecule or just in general?
For the caffeine molecule, but I don't really drink that much coffee.
But do you feel like it doesn't affect, or it goes away quickly, basically? Like you might get jittery or high on it or whatever, but then it doesn't keep you up at night?
No. My mind keeps me up at night.
Because I'm a fairly, I don't sleep well, so I've always kind of correlated it to, or I have sleep problems sometimes, but caffeine, according to my genetics, should be digested fairly quickly. And then I do have a variant, it's called the T variant, that makes it easier to fall asleep after drinking coffee compared to people without the T variant.
Oh.
Okay.
Although, I don't know, I've always associated it with bad sleep too, so I got to be careful. And we know Matt was common in Power Elite.
I was as well.
Matt's a sprinter.
So I'm a sprinter. I have the sprinter gene, but apparently, I've never been much of an endurance person. Whenever I run, I don't really run for endurance, but they did the test, and I have a DNA differences that are commonly found in elite endurance athletes.
Wow.
Makes sense, yeah. You've always seemed elite to me.
He's the only one standing up through this whole thing. So
Yeah.
there you go.
I mean, look at him up there.
I'm like struggling.
That is elite legs. That is elite legs for sure. Many
You get
of those.
Alzheimer's?
Was that the one?
I got Alzheimer's. That scared me.
That's scary. That's really scary.
How are you
I didn't want to
handling
bring the mood down, but that was was a real talk with
Do you have people in your family?
So my grandmother, my dad's mom suffered aneurysm burst in her brain, which then caused memory loss.
Yeah.
But there was always the
That seems
idea
different,
that
though.
she had Alzheimer's, but by the time her brain was, not to be frank, it was mush. So it's kind of hard to test for Alzheimer's when you've got nothing really to work with. And so on that note, it's interesting because my parents are kind of at the age range in which things are, they're 60 and 58. And my dad, I've noticed things are starting to go, and I don't want to offend him, but I think with this, I think I can kind of use the data as a way to maybe gently nudge that conversation into maybe talking about it, since he doesn't want to, admit that he's old.
You know what? That's an awesome use of this kind of data.
So honestly,
because there are preventative things you can kind of do.
This is totally a preventative way, and there are medications, there's help, and there's certain techniques.
Keeping your mind just active and learning new things.
So I think by doing this, it was actually a benefit, if anything.
Yeah. So I had only one thing, which is pretty lucky, but it was macular degeneration. So age-related macular degeneration. You had that too? Increased risk?
My aunt who's not, no, I didn't see that in mine, but my aunt who,
yeah. And my grandma, my grandma had it before she died, and
what is
it just for
the uneducated.
That's actually a good question. You could Google it. So I know it's just your eye going bad. What it actually is, I've heard it starts as sort of spots that come up on the side, and then it's kind of a problem focusing. But blurred or reduced central vision. What's actually happening in the eye, I'm not too sure on.
Right.
So
Same.
Okay.
There's a certain area in the eye called the macula, and it starts thinning.
Oh, wow.
Bad vision.
Yeah. So, because it's something to worry about, for me, there was all sorts of preventative things I can do on the way, especially making sure I have vitamin A in my diet.
Okay.
So obviously eating carrots and stuff like that.
Do you wear contacts?
No, I had LASIK though when I
you
was
got
younger.
LASIK. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's just, I'm
it's
curious
not,
about that.
I don't know if it's very different from blurry vision, with near or farsightedness. It really is more like a clouding, and then something that can in extreme cases lead to something closer to blindness. So what about back hair, or is that applied?
I believe that's just guys.
Oh, but Matt, what'd you get? I got likely little upper back hair.
Well, it didn't really test me here, but I'm pretty sure I have no back hair.
Last time you checked.
Yeah, bald spot, likely no bald spot. Check out lucky. Bitter taste, likely can taste bitter. Bunions, less likely than average to have bunion.
Me too.
Cheek dimples?
Mine was like
I don't have cheek dimples.
likely to have
Slightly
none.
slightly
More likely to have none. It was like 55% you don't.
I like
Yeah.
how
I was
they
like,
word it
that's
like
not
that.
very
with
decisive.
mine. Yeah.
Mine's pretty fat. Just
I
like
think
no dimples.
I
I'm
have
like,
like one. So it was
On
right.
one
50,
side?
Yeah. It was right. It was like 50-50. It was like, no.
it's like, yeah, it could be your right cheek, it could be your left cheek. Cleft in the chin?
I have no.
that.
Yeah, mine said unlikely.
No cleft.
Just
Dandruff?
true.
Yes.
Mine said unlikely.
I have dandruff, but it
I
says I'm
don't.
less likely. But
Mine said I
Jen
was
would be
likely
like-
to. That was part of the Neanderthal.
That one
Oh, is that
surprised
where we're
me.
picking that
Yeah,
up from? That's our
so-
Neanderthals
yeah.
again?
It's a
Hold on,
Neanderthal
let me-
thing.
Oh, of course, it's a Neanderthal
Just blame it
thing.
all on the
Nothing to be
Neanderthal.
embarrassed about.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Earlobe type too. Less likely detached
You
earlobes.
have Neanderthal. You have difficulty discarding rarely used possessions, and you are less likely to have a fear of heights. Is that true?
Yeah, that's what it said about me too. Yeah.
God, bro, what's good?
That's
Let's go
our-
to Six
yeah, that's our-
Flags.
Well, being as a
For sure, they Neanderthal. That's why they're gone. They're like, I'm not scared of heights.
Yeah, bring it on. Let's
Yeah,
die.
That's why
Mountains,
they're,
let's
that's why they're
go.
gone now. You know, jeez.
don't have a problem getting rid of things, but I'm not afraid of heights. I'm not afraid of heights. That one surprised me. It said I was likely to be, and I'm not.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I feel like the Yeti ride at Disney is now going to have a different effect to you now.
It got my my finger length right though for my
the ring finger.
yeah ring finger being
Yeah,
longer
me
than
too.
my front finger.
Yours
Yeah,
is
it got-
your ring's longer. My pointer is longer.
Which one?
Pointer.
What?
I thought that was a male female thing, so that surprised me.
No, girl.
Matt, what's yours?
my?
It says my index finger is longer than my
I'm
ring
not
finger.
flipping her
Me
off.
too,
to
we're
the
the
That's
same.
hard to even do
So,
that. Yeah.
Definitely not male
Yeah, I
female.
know.
I was wrong.
Yeah, is that our Neanderthal again, or is that?
let me check.
Or I mean, got some Irish. It could be our Irish.
It's
Could be
probably
our
our Irish.
Neanderthal. Who knows? We've got
Oh
a lot
wait,
of overlap.
do you have do you like salty or sweet
Oh,
better? It says that you're supposed to like salty over sweet things for our Neanderthal as
Oh,
well.
I like sweet. This makes
I
sense.
love
So
salty.
we should like salty.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably. I
Get me
think
a
I like
pretzel.
salt.
Get me a chocolate covered pretzel.
The chocolate, yes, the chocolate covered.
Yeah,
one.
but that's the sweet part again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I like chocolate.
What do you think hair photo bleaching even is?
Oh, that
More
means when
likely-
you go in the sun, your hair gets lighter.
Haven't you ever had highlights?
Oh, more likely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So absolutely.
Maybe.
Tan for
Yeah.
your hair.
Is that why? I know I was blonde as a kid, but it doesn't feel like it gets
Oh, I
blonde
always-
ever. It's ever been since.
For baseball, you probably maybe got a little bit blonder if you played in like the
Yeah,
summer league. Because
maybe.
I would always get naturally blonder than people thought I got highlights.
interesting,
And I'm like, no,
really?
I didn't do my hair.
Yeah, it's all natural. This is not fake.
Oh yeah.
I would never.
I don't go out in the sun enough anymore for it
But-
to happen. But
No, that's the truth.
Ice cream flavor preference?
ooh, I didn't have that.
It says I prefer. It says I'm likely to prefer chocolate,
That's
but I
funny.
don't. I like vanilla much more.
Oh.
That could be more nurture though. Got a story behind that one.
Okay.
Lighter dark hair, likely light.
Don't you not like chocolate?
Yeah, no, I
That's right.
hate
Okay.
chocolate.
What?
Yeah, but I have more. It's more like because I had this chocolate rabbit that for Easter when I was a kid, and it melted, and it was like just. It was like a friend melting away, and I've never
It says
liked
I have
chocolate
equal
since then.
chances. What the heck?
Doesn't know.
I like everything.
I don't even know that word, but misophonia, average odds of hating the chewing sound. Did you have
Oh
that
no,
one?
I don't have that.
I didn't see that
But
one.
I know
I don't-
people that have it.
I know people that
though.
have it.
Yeah. Does
And
it
I
bother-
always feel weird because like I like foods that are crunchy, and so then I feel really self-conscious. Like eating like an apple, I'm like.
Did
how
you
do
check
how
what's
do
your
you-
what's your boyfriend? Does he hate the chewing sound, or is he
I
okay with
asked
it?
him because I was like, I'm
I
sorry.
know, but check his DNA. He
Oh,
doesn't
you gotta
know.
go.
Yeah, he doesn't know.
He can't take it. So this is an interesting fact.
Oh.
When you're in the military, you're not supposed to take these because
That is true.
Why?
it's like
'Cause the data
it's
goes
like
to China?
privileged data. It's
It is
like
privileged data.
it's not stuff that they want getting out there. Yeah, I wanted to know what his was, all of his stuff, and he's like,
Yeah.
I can't. But
Dude, who knows? Well, that's a whole nother thing.
Yeah.
The privacy where our DNA is already probably in China's servers.
I
and
know,
What
I
if we're
know.
like, who knows what's gonna happen
Right.
with it? Mosquito bite frequency. I'm likely bitten more often than others.
me too.
Me too.
Motion sickness. Do you guys get that?
No.
No.
Matt?
No, not really.
Newborn hair. Likely to have little baby hair.
Said I was likely or not likely to have it, but I came out with a full head of black,
Did you?
jet
What?
black
Really?
hair
No
that
way.
all fell
I was gonna
out
say it really
and
fell
then
out and
turned blonde. Yep.
Mhm, I've heard that before.
Skin pigmentation. They get it right. Likely lighter.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
like you're likely to be very.
Yeah,
very
but they're
pale.
like Scandinavian
pale
Irish,
as
of course.
pale.
Yeah.
You've seen a piece of paper? That.
When you go and buy your foundation, you're the first one. Yeah.
Imagine if you find your boyfriend or like someone you're interested or like a Tinder date like on there. Like
Could you imagine
Could
if
you
something like that
imagine?
happened?
Oh my god.